Hi guys, in this hair tutorial I'm going to be taking you through the basic cornrow techniques. This can be applied for any of your hair textures, whether it's Caucasian or Asian hair texture that you're working on, or you're working on multi-textured hair or Afro hair texture, similar to my model Summer's hair here. So these are methods that can be transferred to any type of cornrow styling that you're going to be doing. So just to clarify, the cornrow technique is exactly the same thing as a Dutch braid. So if you're someone who's already familiar with the French braiding or your Dutch braiding technique, the cornrow technique, the way you position your hands, everything is more or less the same. The only differences will be the positioning of the braid when you've actually completed the look when it's done. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to section my model Summer's hair in half. On the right hand side, I'm going to demonstrate how to do just a straight back cornrow technique. So this will be for some of you, if you work in film and TV or theater, most of the time we tend to work with more wigs. So you would need to make sure that you create a base for your wig fitting for your model, for your actor, before you proceed and actually apply the wigs. And then on the other side, I'm going to show you guys how you can actually translate that technique that we've learned for our basic cornrow to create more of a styled version of that look, in case you're having to create a look where someone has to wear the hair out. For example, if you notice now on the catwalks, we have a lot of our Afro hair models wearing the cornrows, but they're done in a very nice style. It's still simple, but just finding ways where you can actually section the hair in a particular way to just enhance the look of the style. So that's what I'm going to be demonstrating and show you guys how to actually do that. Before we get into that, I'll just quickly mention that Summer's hair was already shampooed, conditioned, prepared and blow dried. So if you need to take a moment and actually do that for your client, and you need to know how to do that, if you just pause this video for a moment, watch back the training videos we've covered on how to prepare your type 4 hair textures, and also how to blow dry for your type 4 hair textures as well. That will cover everything you need to know in case about products, how to use the tools, etc. So with Summer's hair, as it's already been prepared, we're already ready at that stage where we're ready to go in and actually do the cornrow technique. I will briefly take you through what products you actually need to have for the method of styling that we're going to do, and what tools you need to actually have for that as well. So with her hair being prepared already, she's got products on her hair, it's been moisturized. I will still recommend having a moisturizing cream at hand, because as you start the process, you might feel that the hair needs to be moisturized a little bit more. So this is where I would be using my Mizani Coconut Soufflé for moisturizing the hair. This was a product that was already used on her hair when we actually did the blow drying process. So it's always good to have one of these at hand. And one of the key products that is going to also help us with this process is an edge control product. So some of you might already be familiar with what edge control products are, and those we use for laying down the baby hairs. If you've seen videos or pictures where someone would have this kind of style done, where they're just styling out the baby hairs a little bit more, that's the kind of product we use. We can also use the same product when we're actually doing our braiding technique, just for a much more smoother finish on the surface, and it also helps you to control the hair as well. So any edge control product is likely going to work for you, but I would make a recommendation that not to use Mizani's Mizani's edge control product, especially on your natural type 4 hair textures. The only reason being is that that product will naturally, it slightly becomes more liquid as you apply it on the scalp, and especially if you're in a climate where it's quite hot, it's naturally going to start to melt, and it can also cause the hair to then kink back up, so it almost like it's reverting back the hair. But that's the only edge control product I've had that kind of issue with, but majority of the time the other ones I've used work very well. The one I'm actually going to be using is Style Factor's Edge Booster. This one is a stronghold water-based pomade. It says pomade on there, but it's actually an edge control product. So that is what I'm actually going to be using for the styling process of the hair. So I'll explain more about how to actually apply this on the hair when I start the process. So those are my two key products, and I'll summarize again. A moisturizing cream and an edge control product. Those are your two key products that you need. I will mention that if you are going to be learning how to do this and you're styling someone with Caucasian and Asian hair textures, you will probably want to remove the moisturizing cream because that's not going to work for that hair texture. You can still use your edge control product. You might need it to just help to control the hair and create a smooth finish. If you're worried that the edge control can either create too much weight and create an oily buildup on the hair that you're working on, then I would recommend that you switch that and use a gel instead. So a gel that you could use could be, for example, the Schwarzkopf Got to Be Glued gel. You can also use that. That will create a bit more firmer hold and control the lightness of those hair textures, specifically for your Caucasian and Asian hair textures for this method of styling, okay? So now we know what products we need to use. We need to work out what tools do we also need for this process. So for your braiding, you always want to have a pintail comb. This is going to allow us to be able to really create those nice defined sections where you get a nice clean section when you do your sectioning technique, and it's just much more easier to work with than any other comb that I find anyway. So I always recommend using a pintail comb. If you wanted to and you didn't have one of these, the other option would be one of these combs here that I always really like to use. Because it's got that gap in there, it can still allow you to create the sectioning that you want, but it might not create as precise as you might get with more of your pintail comb. So you can decide what you want to use, but I always go more for the pintail comb when I do the styling. So those are my main tools that I'm actually going to be using. And the last thing that I will demonstrate is when we finish the full cornrow styling, when it's completely done, I will need to go in and add a little bit more of a finishing touch to the hair. So this only applies if this person is going, if whoever you're styling is actually going to wear the hair out completely, maybe similar to what we're going to create on the side here. That's when you go in and you apply your, it can either be a foam kind of mousse product that you're going to apply on the hair. For myself, I'm going to actually use Flora & Kel's Kel volumizing foam. It still works for the same thing. So this will be applied throughout the hair on top of the cornrows. I'm going to tie the hair down with a do-rag and then just blow dry over that hair. I'll explain a little bit more when I actually go ahead and do the process, but that is another product that you want to actually have, is some type of like a curling foam or like a mousse that you can use, or it can be a foam wrapping lotion that can be used for the same thing. And then you also want to have a do-rag at hand so that you can use that to just tie the hair down for the process when we set the hair. And also in terms of maintenance, someone can also use this to cover the hair when they're sleeping so that the hair doesn't get messy while they're keeping the style in. So for your basic cornrows that I'm just doing on the right hand side going straight back, that'll be more in line for your wig fittings. Something like that, if you do it very well, it should stay in the hair for anything between 2 to 4 weeks, especially for your type 4 hair textures like my model Summer's hair here. And it's the same thing with the other side where I'm doing it more on the creative side, more styled version of the cornrows I'm doing on the right. Again, if you do it very well, it will stay in for the time period that you'd want it to. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and start the process. So the first thing I'm going to do is to just section Summer's hair in half, and then I'll talk through the process of what I'm going to do on the right hand side here.